The Nightly Business Report.
Good evening. Tonight, President Kumar Dissanayake is likely to undertake a 3-day official visit to the Maldives in the last week of July with a focus on bilateral trade and relationships. According to central bank data, new active credit cards in Sri Lanka increased by 16,812 in April of this year. The Colombo stock market continues to see gains as both the ASPI and S&P SL20 end in the green. And all three major US stock indexes closed with their second straight session of solid gains as investors welcomed a fragile truce with Israel and Iran.
From Studio 24, here's Anuradhi Vikramasinghe.
A very good evening and thank you for joining us. Sri Lanka's President Kumar Dissanayake is likely to undertake a 3-day official visit to the Maldives in the last week of July, and the visit will be focusing on the bilateral trade and relationship. This is according to sources familiar with the initial preparation. President Disanayake's Maldives visit will be his 6th official foreign visit after India, China, the United Arab Emirates, Vietnam and Germany. His visit will be along the celebration of Sri Lanka-Maldives diplomatic relations on the 29th of July. Bilateral trade and relationships will be the focus during the meetings between the leaders and officials of the two nations. A Sri Lankan Foreign Ministry official confirmed the initial preparation for the president's visit. This visit will take place after the Maldives Independence Day, which will be celebrated on the 26th of July, to which Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi is expected to visit. An official at the President's Media Division, however, said the discussion on the visit is taking place but nothing has been confirmed as of yet. New active credit cards in Sri Lanka increased by 16,812 in April this year. This is according to central bank data amid the country's economic recovery and falling interest rates. The number of active credit cards are recorded at 2,055,494 by the end of April, compared to 2,038,682 by the end of March, showing an increase of 0.8% in April. The active credit cards have risen by 2.3% in the first 4 months of this year. Active credit cards in Sri Lanka rose by 4.8% or 91,371 in 2024, with Sri Lanka's economic recovery and strong promotion for credit cards amid falling interest rates. Analysts have said most banks have tied up with supermarkets and other vendors to promote credit cards in the falling interest rate regime as the country's economy has shown more than expected recovery. They said Sri Lanka's economic recovery and stability have helped customers to use more credit cards than in 2023. Sri Lanka's cabinet has approved a proposal to promote tourism at the historic Nuwara post office while continuing its postal services. The colonial-era building, a popular tourist attraction, sees hundreds of visitors daily who often send postcards using its vintage wooden mailbox. Minister Nalinda Jayatissa said the cabinet had decided to repeal a previous move to transfer the post office to the Urban Development Authority. That earlier decision made by a former government was strongly opposed by postal workers and civil society groups. A separate plan to lease the building into India's Taj hotels was also met with resistance from employees and activists. The new proposal aims to modernize the premises to attract more tourists and generate additional revenue without altering its historical function. Sri Lanka's government has taken over loans of $2.4 billion borrowed from state banks by state-run Ceylon Petroleum Corporation, which have been converted into term loans. This is according to a latest Finance Ministry report. In 2024, taxpayers have effectively taken over 788.6 billion rupee equivalents in state bank loans to the CPC under treasury guarantees. A 410.4 billion rupee equivalent of forex credit from the Bank of Ceylon to the CPC and default interest of 73.6 billion rupees has been converted to a US dollar term loan. A 136.6 billion rupee equivalent forex loan and default interest of 30.4 billion rupees has been converted to 224.3 million equivalent dollar term loans. Another 224.3 billion rupee equivalent US dollar loans and default interest of 38.2 billion rupees had been converted to rupee treasury bonds. By the end of 2024, the term loan to the Bank of Ceylon was 1,582 million US dollars and term loans to the People's Bank was $546 million. Treasury bonds given to the People's Bank was 262.58 billion rupees. The CPC has been forced to take suppliers whenever forex shortages emerge after macroeconomics cut rates with inflationary open market operations under central bank independence. Let's take a short break now. This is the Nightly Business Report. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. The Colombo Stock Exchange closed higher today with the all share price index rising 344.42 points or 2% to 17,535.62. The S&P Sri Lanka 20 index also gained 85.11 points or 1.66%, closing at 5,219. Market activity was robust with a total share volume of 253.4 million and a turnover of over 5.9 billion Sri Lankan rupees. For further insights, we speak with Manusha Kandanarachi from First Capital Holdings.
Thank you, Anuradhi. Building on the positive sentiment from yesterday following the ceasefire agreement and with no major escalations in the Middle East conflict, the Colombo bourse sustained its bullish momentum throughout the trading session. Driven by strong investor conviction, the all-share price index posted a forceful 344-point rally, ending the day at 17,536 in a clear display of market dominance. The session witnessed relatively strong participation from both high net worth and retail investors as well. Turnover stood elevated at 5.9 billion rupees, demonstrating a 13% increase from yesterday and 12% increase from the monthly average of 5.3 billion rupees on the back of multiple closings as well. The capital goods sector was the top contributors to today's turnover, accounting for a share of 21%. This was followed by the banking and diversified financial sectors, which produced a joint contribution of about 35% as well. Additionally, top three gainers of the day were Nation Lanka Finance, SMB Finance and Industrial Asphalts.
Sri Lanka has sold 60.48 billion rupees of treasury bills after offering 65 billion with yields mostly flat across maturities. This is according to data from the State Debt Office. For further insights on this, we speak with Akna Tennakon from First Capital Holdings.
Thank you, Anuradhi. Today, the Central Bank of Sri Lanka conducted its weekly treasury bill auction, raising a total of 60.5 billion rupees against the initial offer of 65 billion rupees. The 3-month maturity raised about 8 billion, substantially lower than the initially offered amount of 25 billion rupees. The weighted average yield for the 3-month bill stood unchanged at 7.55. Moving on, the 6-month maturity raised 38.1 billion, higher than the initial offer, which stood at 25 billion rupees. The weighted average yield for this maturity inched higher by 2 basis points to 7.75. Finally, the 12-month maturity raised a total of 14.5 billion rupees, slightly lower than the initial offer of 15 billion. Weighted average yield for this maturity also stayed unchanged compared to the previous auction at 7.94%. Thank you.
Gold prices edged higher in Asian trading today following sharp losses in the previous session, supported by a weaker US dollar. Spot gold rose 0.2% to $3,329.93 an ounce, while August gold futures gained 0.3% to $3,344.70 per ounce. The bullion had dropped over 1% on Tuesday after US President Donald Trump announced a ceasefire between Israel and Iran. On Monday night, President Trump declared a multi-stage ceasefire and urged both parties not to violate the agreement. However, doubts remain over the durability of the truce, as Trump later accused both sides on social media of failing to fully honor their commitments. Despite the ceasefire, ongoing uncertainty continues to weigh on safe haven demand for gold. Oil prices edged higher today as investors evaluated the stability of a ceasefire between Iran and Israel, supported by data indicating relatively strong U.S. demand. Brent crude futures rose 0.7% to $67.62 a barrel, while U.S. West Texas Intermediate crude also gained 0.7%, reaching $64.81 a barrel. Both benchmarks had settled at their lowest levels since early June, before Israel launched a surprise attack on key Iranian military and nuclear facilities. Prices had surged to 5-month highs following the U.S. strike on Iran's nuclear sites over the weekend. The Sri Lankan rupee has appreciated slightly against the US dollar at commercial banks in Sri Lanka today. The buying and selling rates of the US dollar have reduced respectively. The rupee has seen slight changes against Gulf currencies as well today. So let's take a closer look at how the Sri Lankan rupee is performing against other major global currencies. A short break now. This is the Nightly Business Report. Welcome back. Cinnamon Life, South Asia's first integrated resort, has taken a progressive step towards redefining luxury hospitality by introducing 6 Denza D9s, a luxury new energy vehicle, into its operations.
The official handover was held at Cinnamon Life and marked the beginning of a strategic partnership between two forward-thinking brands under the John Keells Group umbrella. This collaboration reflects a shared vision between Cinnamon Life and John Keells CG Auto, the authorized distributor of Denza D9s in Sri Lanka, and represents a significant milestone in the convergence of sustainable mobility and high-end tourism. As demand for responsible travel grows, Cinnamon Life continues to lead the sector with experiences that combine world-class service and environmental stewardship. The Denza D9 BYD Global's flagship luxury NEV sets a new standard for eco-conscious sophistication. Designed for comfort and performance, the Denza D9s are tailored for discerning travelers who expect both elegance and environmental accountability. With this rollout, John Keells CG Auto has introduced the Denza brand to Sri Lanka's mobility landscape. The first fleet deployment signals an important step in expanding green mobility into sectors like tourism, where the potential for impact is significant.
Azurline Finance Limited, the flagship company under the financial services pillar of David Pierce Holdings Limited, has delivered one of its strongest performances to date for the financial year, reinforcing its position as one of Sri Lanka's leading non-bank financial institutions. Guided by a strong customer-centric approach and strategic vision, Azurline Finance recorded a 14% increase in interest income, reaching 11.3 billion rupees, up from 9.9 billion the previous year. Net interest income surged by 30% to 8.7 billion rupees. Profit before tax rose by 96% to 5.6 billion rupees, while profit after tax more than doubled to 2.7 billion rupees, an 11% increase from the previous year. Azurline Finance's exceptional financial performance was matched by continued improvements in operational efficiency, disciplined risk management and balance sheet strength. The company's total assets increased by 40% to 52.4 billion rupees, while the lending portfolio grew by 46% to 42.7 billion rupees, reflecting strong credit demand and effective portfolio management. It maintained a robust capital adequacy ratio of 26.1%, well above the regulatory minimum, and strengthened its equity base by 15%, ensuring long-term financial resilience and investor confidence. Coca-Cola Beverages Sri Lanka introduced its iconic universal returnable glass bottles at one of Sri Lanka's prominent supermarket chains, Love Super.
This initiative, which is eco-friendly, will also provide consumers with better choices and improved experience. These returnable glass bottles will be available through the Love supermarket chain across the island. As a total beverage company, Coca-Cola Beverages Sri Lanka continues to expand its packaging choices, enabling consumers to select the type and size that best suits their lifestyle and occasion. In 2022, responding to the economic challenges in Sri Lanka, CCBSL launched the large returnable glass bottle for the first time in Sri Lanka, called the Big Buddy Pack. This was initially rolled out in the Western Province and is now available in other regions as well. Following the launch of the LRGB, Coca-Cola Beverages Sri Lanka expanded its returnable packaging portfolio by introducing universal glass bottles in 3 different sizes in 2024. This initiative is also driven by CCBSL's commitment as well as increasing consumer demand for sustainable packaging. The partnership with Love Supermarkets is a key component of this rollout, with its extensive research and strong commitment to community well-being. beginning. The supermarket chain has fully embraced the initiative, establishing bottle return collection points and training staff to facilitate a smooth transition. Coca-Cola Beverages Sri Lanka aims to expand the availability of returnable glass bottles to additional retailers and regions based on consumer feedback and logistical readiness.
Star Garments Group, a powerhouse in Sri Lanka's apparel industry and part of Charles Koma & Sons, inaugurated its groundbreaking textile manufacturing facility at Aditikope Industrial Platform in Togo. The ceremony, presided over by President of Council of Togo for Gnasinghe, marks a transformative milestone for both the company and West Africa's textile industry. The historic inauguration represents Star Garments' first manufacturing expansion outside of Sri Lanka, positioning Togo as a strategic gateway for the company's global growth and the development of West Africa as a new hub for apparel manufacturing. Sri Lanka will continue serving as the company's service center, with operations expanding to support Star's integrated global manufacturing network. The 3.7-hectare facility will create 2,000 direct employment opportunities for Togolese nationals, with over 60% of positions designated for women. H&B Assurance plc was recognized by Parenthood Global as one of the most outstanding mom-inclusive workplaces for the second year. This prestigious accolade reflects the company's continued commitment to creating an inclusive, empathetic and empowering work environment for mothers in the workforce. Going a step further, Parenthood Global also honored 5 exceptional mothers from H&B Assurance as outstanding mom leaders, acknowledging their ability to excel both as professionals and as parents. At the heart of this recognition lies H&B Assurance's consistent efforts to support working mothers through policies and initiatives that foster balance, growth and well-being. The company has implemented several people-centric benefits such as extended maternity and paternity leave, caregiver leave, flexible working arrangements, wellness support and reimbursement of professional development costs, all designed to help mothers navigate both career and family responsibilities with confidence. Of H&B Assurance plc, Chief Executive Officer Lasitha Wimalaratna stated, being recognized for the second consecutive year as a mom-inclusive workplace is an incredible honor. Let's take a short commercial break. Global business updates coming on the other side. This is the Nightly Business Report. Welcome back to the Nightly Business Report. Stocks ticked higher and crude oil held not far from multi-week lows as investors took a ceasefire between Israel and Iran as a green light to head back into riskier assets and cast aside immediate worries about an energy shock. Europe's stock 600 index edged up 0.2% in early trade, while S&P 500 futures and Nasdaq futures were flat. Japan's Nikkei rose 0.4%, while Hong Kong's Hang Seng climbed 1.3% and mainland Chinese blue chips gained 1.44%, closing at their highest level since March. South Korea's Kospi edged 0.3% higher and indices saw over 2% gains a day earlier. China's Shanghai Composite Index and Shanghai Shenzhen CSI 300 both traded marginally higher as well. Singapore's Straits Times Index rose 0.5%, while the Philippines' PSEI Composite added 0.6%. Futures tied to India's Nifty 50 edged up 0.3%. All 3 major U.S. stock indexes closed with their second straight session of solid gains as investors welcomed a fragile truce with Israel and Iran while passing Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell's congressional testimony.
U.S. stocks rallied on Tuesday with the Dow and S&P 500 gaining more than 1% each and the Nasdaq climbing nearly 1.5%. Tuesday marked the second straight session of solid gains following U.S. missile strikes on Iran's key nuclear facilities, with the S&P ending near its all-time closing high reached on February 19th. Meanwhile, the Nasdaq 100, a subset of the Nasdaq Composite, hit an all-time closing high. On the economic front, pessimism over the jobs market, as reflected in the consumer confidence data for June, fell to its lowest level in more than 4 years. Investors also parsed comments on Capitol Hill from Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell, who reiterated his view that rate cuts can wait until the inflationary effects of tariffs are better known. Stocks on the move Tuesday included crypto exchange Coinbase Global, which rose 12% after Bitcoin hit a one-week high. Shares of Broadcom touched a record high on Tuesday, closing about 4% higher after HSBC raised the semiconductor manufacturer to buy from hold. And shares of FedEx dropped more than 5% in extended trading after the company issued a disappointing current quarter forecast.
FedEx signaled caution for the year ahead and forecast current quarter profits short of market expectations amid volatile global demand, sending shares down more than 5% after hours.
FedEx shares tumbled in after-hours trade Tuesday, dropping over 5%. The plunge came after the firm signalled caution for the year ahead and gave a profit outlook for the current quarter that was short of market expectations. FedEx said the biggest hit came from the Trump administration's move to end duty-free shipments for low-cost packages from China. That had previously been a huge source of business for the firm, which delivered parcels for online retailers like Temu and Shein. Speaking on an earnings webcast, Chief Executive Raj Subramaniam said the broader outlook for global demand remained volatile. As a result, FedEx declined to offer earnings or revenue forecasts for the full year. It cited uncertainty over US trade policies, particularly with regard to China. The company is far more exposed to trade with that country than arch-rival UPS, whose shares fell less than 1%. However, the performance of both firms is closely watched by analysts, as they're considered economic bellwethers. That's because they work with all types of companies around the world, making them among the first to spot developing trends. The gloomy outlook from FedEx overshadowed forecast-beating results for the quarter just gone. Profit and revenue both exceeded expectations, with the firm crediting factors including cost-cutting measures.
And that wraps up today's Nightly Business Report. We value your opinion as always, so please share your thoughts and feedback with us through email at feedback.ad24english@derana.lk or via WhatsApp at 076-805-7933. We'll see you again tomorrow with the latest updates across the business globe. Until then, I'm Anuradhi Vikramasinghe. Thank you very much for watching and have a good night.